Police arresting a man accused of setting the Pennsylvania governor's mansion on fire while Governor Shapiro and his family were sleeping inside. Shapiro condemning political violence after the incident.
Last night, we experienced an attack not just on our family, but on the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay. And it has to stop.
Police say the suspect, Cody Balmer, was found with homemade incendiary devices. He is expected to face charges of attempted murder, terrorism, and aggravated arson. Vice President J.D. Vance reacting to the attack, saying, quote, "Thanks be to God that Governor Shapiro and his family were unharmed in this attack. Really disgusting violence, and I hope whoever did it is brought swiftly to justice."
My God, I actually pity those poor bastards we're going up against. My God, I do. We're not going to just meme those globalists. We're going to meme them till they cry and use their tears to grease the treads of our takes.
Happy Monday morning to you, Jerry. I could use like a full, let's do the full speech. That's like one of the most epic speeches in Hollywood history. The George S. Patton, Donald Trump speech. Always a winner. I could use do the full thing. Let's do that. Let's do the exact, like I freaking love that movie. That movie raised me. It was absolutely my favorite childhood movie. I don't know what that says about my childhood, that Patton was my favorite movie, but man, Jerry, let's do a full-length feature film of that. Today is Monday, April 14th, 2025. Arrests made when an arsonist, political terrorist, tried to burn down the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. What's going on there? We now know who it is, and there's a ton of fake news about this, so we're going to set the record straight. Okay. Shocker, they're going to try and blame Donald Trump. Stephen A. Smith tears into the 2028 presidential cycle. What's going on there? They're really going to run a guy who's just been yelling about the NBA for the past 20 years? A guy who's built nothing, never created a business, never created a single job. This is what the Democrats are going to put up. This is going to be the great salvation for the Democrat Party is going to be this. Very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have some updates from our weekend with President Trump at UFC. Michael Flynn joins the program. Lots to talk about with him. And Dr. Carol Swain, also on the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. There is never been a better time to invest in gold. Gold has never been higher. We've been talking about gold for a very, very long time, and I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time to lock it in. The reason why we talk about it so much is, one, because we're really happy and proud of our partnership with Advantage Gold, but also because we like being right. President Trump posted this morning. Can we grab that? I don't know if we have it in the script. Can we grab it? Donald Trump says the sign of intelligence is being able to predict the future. And don't let me do your taxes. Let me do your taxes. You'll probably definitely be going to jail. I know tax day is like right around the corner here. Don't let me do your taxes. But I'm telling you, this we have been right about. Investing in gold. Ladies and gentlemen, our friends at Advantage Gold can make it easy for you. We just saw some major volatility in the market. The world was on fire. This is probably going to continue, right? They're going to use this as a weapon against Donald Trump. This is your way out. You can legally move your IRA, 401k, or TSP into physical gold and silver, assets that can protect your wealth through major economic crises. Advantage Gold is showing everyday Americans how to step by step get into physical gold and silver. Their free info kit is available to you, plus $1,000 in free bonuses if you qualify just for attending. Text Benny to 85545. Learn how to get help breaking free from the broken system today. Text Benny to 85545 today. Send that text right now. Data and message rates do apply. Always consult your financial and tax professional. I'm sure you're consulting your tax professionals. Right now, as the worst day of the year is upon us, Donald Trump saying he wants to get rid of the income tax for the vast majority of Americans. I cannot tell you how much we would like that. It's not something that I asked President Trump, though, when we met at UFC. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We were at the UFC. It's our great honor to be at the UFC this weekend. We were invited by Dana White. It was in Miami. Donald Trump was there, but it wasn't just Donald Trump. It was an entire cabinet meeting. President Trump had his entire cabinet roll up. Please play clip A, Klein. Our entire cabinet rolled in. This was our perspective. You can see here, Kash Patel walking right behind President Trump. Also Don Jr.'s kids there, along with Elon Musk, Ted Cruz, Dana White, next governor of Florida, Byron Donalds. And waiting for him was RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. They were already seated. What can be said about this? I mean, listen to the roars. First off, here, listen to this. Please. It's hard to capture. You can't capture. There's something so esoteric. There's something so kinetic, something so energetic about this. You will never hear a stadium roar louder than when Donald Trump walks in. And you can find it at a MAGA rally. Donald Trump walks into football stadiums. Donald Trump walks into national championships. There's something special about UFC. There's something special about combat. It's why I'm really, really happy that the entire administration was there. The whole admin was there. We got to chat through it. We got to talk with key members of the administration. I'll tell you all of those details. We hold nothing back on this program, and I'll tell you our chance to speak with the president and observe him behind the scenes, what we learned there. Okay, so real quickly, why is this important? This is an energy giver to Donald Trump. This comes directly from, let's just say, Trump's team, all right, who communicate with us and say, this is like these kind of moments pour energy into the president and connect him with his base. Because when they have you in Washington, D.C., they have you inside of a trap. Now, I know this because I lived in that trap for 15 years. I worked in that trap. The trap is an echo chamber that stops you from being connected to reality. You live inside of a world of New York Times headlines, Washington Post headlines. You're surrounded by a city that voted 96% for Kamala Harris. You are insulated. It is a tactic. It's a mirage. It's fake. It's not real. In fact, the city is in total collapse, in a state of utter dismay. And it's good to break out of those chains, but it's a weapon of our enemy. They have tried to insulate, and we're going to talk about this with the arson, because they're connected, in fact. Because right now, they're insulating this little arsonist against the reality of who this person was. They're going to try and claim that this was a Trump supporter, or this was a MAGA bomber. Get ready, I'm already seeing it in my headlines, but we have the proof on this program that it wasn't. We have the evidence, and we'll show you here in just a second. We're going to break those narratives. But they do the same thing to Trump. When Trump's in D.C., they slaughter him with bad headlines. They surround him with traitors if they can. Vetting matters so much here. And they're doing this in order to sap the president, in order to steal from him his energy. So that's why this stuff matters. Donald Trump was having a great time here. You can see like how enlivened the president was. Donald Trump like dapping up Shaq. Like this one's really funny. Donald Trump got major love from the big diesel with a huge Superman chain. Shaq photobombed us, by the way. And did I send you guys that clip? Here, why not? Why not? We have news to talk about, but it was like this was a lot of fun anyway. So we just might as well. This is the only time I'll be able to on the program, probably for the rest of the history of this entire show, talk about Shaq photobombing us. I was doing a recording behind the scenes at UFC, and Shaq comes up and grabs my shoulder and shakes me and photobombs. How many other opportunities can you get a chance to say that? And this sort of bleeds into a point that this is way more powerful audience and way more powerful people sitting in chairs and sitting and observing the event than the Oscars, than the Super Bowl. The entire presidential, not the entire cabinet, but it was effectively a cabinet meeting at the Octagon, plus big-time streamers, media personalities, major sporting heroes. This guy who is a NFL tight end. Njoku is his name. I don't follow the NFL that closely. I just don't. I'm just not like that massive of a sports fan. He comes walking up to Donald Trump, gives him this massive hug. These NFL players coming over and like hugging Trump, kissing the ring. It's such a valuable it's like the true reality of like what is powerful and what is influence. And what I think is particularly fascinating about all this is, one, it's energy giving to Trump. Donald Trump walks in like a conquering hero. Two, it proves where Trump is in the matrices of power and power play. Because there's all these celebrities here. There's the reason why we put up the Shaq photo. There's all these celebrities here. Do you have the NFL tight end? Okay, yeah, let's grab that. There's all these power players that are there. All the politicians are going up to the celebrities to get photos. All the celebrities are going up to Donald Trump to get photos. So what does that tell you? President Trump's been in both worlds. He's conquered both worlds, and now this is why they view him as such a threat, because Trump is culture. Man, this is crazy. Look at this NFL lineman, this NFL tight end, like coming up and they'll never show you this clip on the media, coming up and like hugging Trump, posing with Trump, getting multiple angles, saluting. It shows you why they're so scared of Trump. And watching this and observing it ourselves is really fun. And it's an honor, and we view it as such. But there's one final takeaway that I think is really important from all of this. It's energy giving to the president. He loves this. It shows the power of President Trump from a cultural perspective. And then finally, bringing his entire cabinet with him shows something else, a united front, that they're willing to fight. These people have been through the depths of hell for Donald Trump. And much like the fighters in the octagon, who are bloodied and battered, but who wind up victorious, like America loves a fighter. And when that stadium stands up and 30,000 people are roaring at the top of their lungs for President Trump, they're doing it because they know he's a fighter. He survived assassins' bullets, but also assassinations from a judicial, political, impeachment, assassinations. Like, he's the undisputed champion. And Donald Trump locking his administration into that world of fighters and champions and conquest and brutality and blood sport and victory is just an epic iconography. It works perfectly with his administration because everybody knows what they've all been through, especially the fighters. These fighters coming up and giving respect and honor to President Trump. This one's crazy. Okay, so which fighter was this? Dominic Reyes. Do we have him running over for the selfies? Okay, yeah. So Dominic Reyes comes in, and like every single fighter was running up to Trump. You didn't see this on TV if you were actually watching. Every fighter goes running up to Trump to like give mad respects to Donald Trump. Every fighter. There you go. Is it crazy? This guy just won. What weight was he at? 205 pounds. KO, right? Peak of his profession. One of the best moments of his life. And him and his entire team are running over to take this selfie with President Trump. All of the fighters come over in almost like a Coliseum vibe. Like the champions come over and pay respects to Caesar. You can see why there's energy giving to Donald Trump. We got to hang with Cash. Cash and I talked about the releases of information, everything from Epstein to J6. And what Cash told me is that the FBI is working as quickly as possible to get through the security issues with these files and then to turn them over to anybody who's requesting them. He says thousands of files have already been turned over to Jim Jordan and Chuck Grassley, the FBI, the J6 pipe bomber, Crossfire Hurricane. Expect more drops, but there's a way to do it that ensures that the right people are punished, and then there's a way to do it that's sloppy, and we want it done the right way. So that's what we spoke with Cash about. More to come on that. We talked with RFK. RFK, we thanked him for bringing back fat shaming. RFK just fat shamed the governor of West Virginia, and we thought that was really, really funny. And also needed in society, and RFK was laughing and howling, and we had a really grand old time. Wyatt Hendrickson is the NCAA heavyweight champion, and he's just an awesome dude. And he's a patriot, a veteran. It's freaking cool. And we were able to then go see Trump. And here's what happened. I'm walking. This isn't the right one. Please play the walkout. So I'm walking out. Trump is walking out and daps me up. And then Dana White comes over and says, "Come with us," and pulls me backstage. And because it's backstage, it's not public, I'm going to just reveal the greater overall themes of what I observed back there. President Trump, this is 2 a.m. in the morning. President Trump is so energetic, his people can barely keep up with him. This is at 2 a.m. This is after Donald Trump has spent an entire day working and sitting there, like, with people, with everyone being brought over to him, right? And like sitting there, like holding court, ringside at UFC, every fighter coming over, every celebrity coming over. Donald Trump is nearly 80. Joe Biden had already been asleep for 6 hours at this point. Donald Trump comes over and is like, he's like moving backstage. It's crazy. Brimming with energy, bright future, talking about what's coming next, setting up the next day, even though it's literally already the next day, it's already Sunday, and working with his team. Working with the people who were with him and just popping off. It was remarkable to see. I've never seen Trump at that hour. Probably something reserved only for people that work in the White House. But being backstage and just sort of watching it and observing it was incredible. Donald Trump, super optimistic, very locked in, and his Secret Service could barely keep up with him. I nearly ran into the nuclear football. That was scary. I was actually pushed out of the way because the nuclear football was coming through. If you watch closely, when Donald Trump walks out of the opening into the UFC, you can actually see the military attaches with the nuclear football, one representative from every branch of the military. It's really freaking cool. It's just unbelievably awesome. And you're able to see the power of the entire country sort of vested in one man. And this is what they're kind of trying to destroy. And that's why these moments are important. These moments are important because it shows you exactly how special this man who's one of one is. And what we've all got to do from a movement perspective to keep this energy going, because right now Trump is culture. And ladies and gentlemen, that is extremely powerful. This is why they tried to kill him. This is why they tried to put a bullet through his head, and they succeeded in a headshot. They blew off a piece of his head, his ear. This is why they're trying to kill him and why we must keep fighting. America loves a fighter. And ladies and gentlemen, let's freaking go. This is the moment in the show where I just say a massive shout out to Dana White, who's been a friend of our show and who's been an ally with us, and who you can see ALX here with Klein and I and ALX, and we were all backstage with Dana White. So awesome. He's just this guy is a mountain of a man. I don't know how he has the energy. No wonder he and President Trump are such fast friends. The UFC wouldn't exist in part without President Trump. Dana White says this with regularity. Donald Trump gave them their first shot when nobody else would. And the reason why they're such strong allies is that both these men know how to throw a punch. and fight back. And Dana White's done a ton of that, and it worked. And, man, he's just a G. We're just thankful for Dana. Thank you for these experiences, and we do our best to cover them and to bring you along with us. So these wrap-ups are kind of like, we view it as we're there to work, right? We're there not to be like a consumer, but to bring you along. It's a privilege for us to do it, and the privilege has to be then shared with the audience. And then we need to like think through, what does this all actually mean? It means Trump is culture, and that's for the first time in our lifetime. Our movement, the freedom movement, is mainlined. It's mainstreamed. Let's not lose that, okay? Let's like make sure that we understand how special that is and lock it in and keep fighting. Okay, here we go. The number one news story in the country right now is Josh Shapiro having his home burned down effectively by an arsonist. And I have a lot of questions about this, and we're going to do a considerable amount of fact-checking. But let's start with the info on the attack. The news break on the attack and what happened, who did what. This is something, of course, that we are going to condemn. But what do we know right now? Let's go.
The arrest overnight. The suspect charged with setting fire to the home of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who was there with his family at the time. Our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky, is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with the latest. Good morning to you, Aaron.
And good morning to you, Robin. You can see the yellow tape, the boarded up windows. That's the spot where police say the arsonist broke glass and hurled a Molotov cocktail while the governor and his family were asleep inside.
This morning, an arrest after police say an arsonist tried to kill Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro by setting fire to his official residence. The fire blackened damage evident, part of the mansion left uninhabitable.
This type of violence is not okay. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other.
The governor and his family were gathered Saturday evening with 24 others celebrating the first night of Passover. Shapiro sharing this photo of his Seder plate. At 2 a.m., that very room was engulfed in fire.
The governor's residence burning a large fire in the dining room on the first floor. They can see fire out the windows.
The governor and his family were asleep inside, police rushing in to rouse them.
State troopers assigned to our detail woke us up and told us we had an emergency and needed to leave immediately.
Authorities now charging 38-year-old Cody Balmer of Harrisburg with aggravated arson, attempted murder, and terrorism.
He clearly had a plan. He was very methodical in his approach, without a lot of hurry.
This is the part of the fence the suspect breached to make his way inside the governor's residence, where he set the fire with an incendiary device. Investigators cut away this part of the fence so they could do DNA testing. No one was injured, but the attack left the governor, who has 4 children, shaken.
Lori and I are overwhelmed by the prayers and the messages of support that we've received from all across Pennsylvania and all across the United States.
Police say the suspect confessed and told them he would have attacked Governor Shapiro with a hammer had he found him inside. Law enforcement sources tell ABC News Balmer has posted disdain for Democrats. And George, they're also not ruling out whether Shapiro's Jewish faith may have played a role in motivating the attack. George.
Okay, Aaron, thanks for
These effing bastards. We play these clips. We play these clips to talk you through how propaganda is made. Let's go through. How is the propaganda made? Did you hear that at the very end? Did you hear that at the very end? That guy, what famous clip was he in? He's not the one who clothes-pinned his rain jacket back. That was David Muir. But that guy's been in some pretty embarrassing ABC News propaganda. But this is how it's made. This is how it's made. That reporter, that scumbag, experts say that he's post clips that he doesn't like Democrats. What is that? Call that a dog whistle. Well, then he must be a Trump supporter. He must be a MAGA Republican. He was clearly doing this because he hates Jews and he's a MAGA Republican. That's what it is. That's what they're telling you. They can't put in the script because it's defamatory. It's wrong. It's flatly wrong based on the evidence. But what they can do, these snakes, it makes my blood boil. What they do is they can sprinkle it in. He's posted a lot of bad things about Democrats. Okay? Wink, wink. Got it. He hates the Democrat Party. You know what that means. All right. Here's the image of the suspect. Let's put it up. Let's go. This is him and his family. It's Cody Balmer. It's an image, of course, they would never dare show you. Cody Balmer, boy, oh boy. Let's go ahead and look through what Cody Balmer actually believed. Let's start with some of the easiest ways to actually tell what somebody believes by looking at their donation records. We went and pulled his actual donation records. He's never donated to a Republican. He's never donated to a Democrat, okay? This is just one of the first top line things that you can see. Unlike the person who shot Trump in the head, who donated to Joe Biden. This individual has not donated. Okay, so that's one very strong indicator. People can say a lot of stuff. That's one very strong indicator. He did vote. He voted in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024. He lived not too far from the governor's mansion. So he did end up voting. He does not have a party affiliation. So he's not registered as a Republican or a Democrat. So he's voting in the general. He's also somebody who's posted regularly on Facebook. And those have been screenshotted. Now, there's a lot of fake news that's going around. But what I want to do is I want to try and knock the legs out of the stool that this guy is some type of MAGA Republican who loves Donald Trump, and he's just trying to kill the Democrat governor, pretty popular governor, right? Relatively popular governor. I think it's like generally assumed that if Kamala Harris had chosen Josh Shapiro as a running mate, that I don't think that she would have won. I just think that she might have won Pennsylvania. Perhaps she might have done better in some of the Rust Belt states, enough to make us sweat a little more than we did on election night. Josh Shapiro is a relatively popular guy. I don't know what his approval numbers are in Pennsylvania. They should be low because listen, by his actions and by his governorship, he's a nightmare. All right, he's made the elections very insecure in the state. He's clearly very close with the Soros. Takes a bunch of photos with them. I don't like Josh Shapiro, but he would have been a much better candidate as vice president than Governor Walz, who was a complete nightmare. What's the point? The point is that they're trying to now cast this as MAGA violence. Be the light you want to see in the world. I don't know a lot of people who are MAGA who would crochet a Molotov cocktail. Cody Balmer did, or at the very least he shared about it on Facebook, and he shared a lot of other things on Facebook. Like, for instance, saying that he's a registered socialist, something that ABC News left out of their report very conveniently. Posts like these: stop being a Democrat or a Republican. Do you realize this country just pulled $62 trillion out of its ass without blinking, and we'd go back to providing health care as a right? Then he's posting negative cartoons about MAGA. He's posting negative cartoons about the right and the left, saying that there's a better way forward, using Andrew Yang. Cody Balmer seems to be an anarchist. Anarchist's tool of choice is the Molotov cocktail, so it stands to reason. Cody Balmer is somebody who hates both sides and wants to see them destroyed. He happens to live in a state, he happens to live right down the street, actually. You can put up the Google Maps. He lived very close to the governor's mansion. So that's going to be a particular point of ire for him. So there you go. This is the closest proximity point of power for Cody Balmer, and he attacked him. He also planned on murdering the governor. We've now heard this socialist, so that's what we're going to call him. We're going to call him a socialist because he's self-professed. I think he's also anti-Christian. He also has some anti-Christian posting. Sadly, there are Christians more committed to the Second Amendment than they are to the Second Commandment. Okay, got it. So he posts anti-Christian. So what do we know about Cody Balmer? He's literally said, I'm a socialist. He hates Republicans. He hates MAGA. He hates Democrats too. He posts bad things about Democrats as well. He didn't like Joe Biden. To say otherwise would be untrue. But this guy is someone who's just wanting to burn down the system. So when ABC wink, wink, nod, nod, this guy's a Republican. It's all false. Planned to beat the governor with the hammer, and inside of the mansion was destroyed. So I have a couple of questions about this. One, why did this individual get so close to the governor's mansion? You know, a Molotov cocktail works. You have to be really close to something to set it on fire. With a bottle, really, it's like the distance that you can possibly throw it. So where was the security exactly? We're going to start asking the same questions as we did about the assassination attempt that happened just up the road from this. Where the hell is the security? Why was this man allowed to do this? Because at this point, you're allowing them to do it. Please pull up like a map of the governor's mansion. Pull that up. Get me a map of the governor's mansion. How close is it to the street? There's a fence. There's got to be a fence. So how close is this actually to the street? So this guy, I guarantee, so pull it up. I need to say this with certitude. He had to have jumped a fence. He had to have crossed some type of yard. There's no way the governor's mansion is just like sitting in the middle of town, like on this, like accessible to everybody. He has to get through some type of like major security barriers. And there are people that jump the fence at the White House here and there. You know, it happens on occasion, once a year, twice a year. Somebody jumps the fence and then they're immediately intercepted. No, I want a map of the mansion. Google map the mansion. Let's see it on Google Maps. What does the mansion actually look like? Because why was he allowed? Sure, but like, are you able to just walk up from the street? Surely there's a security barrier at the actual mansion. If you were able to get like Google Street View, get me Google Street View of this. Let's actually investigate here, please. What's going on? This guy, like, there was a massive security failure. He's able to run up to the window, smash the window with a hammer. He broke in, and then he hurled homemade Molotov cocktails into the mansion. Okay, here's one example of the fence outside of the house. There we go. Thank you. Here we go. This is the Google Street View of the mansion. You can see the security barriers there. You can see the security house there. There's clearly a security guard. I think there obviously should be. There are hedges. There's fences. And he's able to jump the fence. He was able to jump the fence. Nobody stopped him. Nobody sounded the alarm. Then he has to run across, zoom in here. Then he has to run across the yard, the big yard. And you see, he lit the first floor right there, first floor left. That's the rooms that he lit on fire. He's able to light that on fire. So he's running. So first off, he's jumping the fence, carrying, they said he used 2 Heineken 40s. Okay, so there's 40-ounce bottles. 2 Heineken 40-ounce bottles filled with gasoline. So he's able to jump the fence. Maybe they're in a backpack, but still, you're not moving fast. They're filled with gasoline. He's carrying a significant load, and then he's able to run across the yard and throw bottles into that window. Smashes the window. There's no alarms that get set off. I have alarms on my window. A lot of Americans do. No alarms get set off? I'm just asking questions for the good of the country here, all right? The governor of Pennsylvania should be protected. As we've said on this program, time and time again, violence is not the answer. Violence is the way of the animals. I don't want my country to resort to tribal violence. That's the end of your country. That will end terribly. And leftists should definitely, if you look at the makeup of this country, leftists should definitely not want tribal violence. You don't want physical violence. You want there to be pressure release valves in society. That's what a vote is. That's what the process that was put in place in this country to stop us from sectarian violence. So I don't want this to happen. The guy's a socialist. The guy's a socialist, and he tried to kill the governor of Pennsylvania. I don't want the governor of Pennsylvania to be killed. I want him to live a long, happy life. Out of power. I don't want him to be in office, but I don't want anything bad to happen to him. So socialist coming in here, breaking in. What? Like, who's guarding this place? Again, like, I just have to, you have to like ask the question, how did this happen? Okay, it's bad. This is terrible. I disavow it. But how does somebody do this? How does somebody smash in, put up the Google Maps again? How does somebody jump across that barrier, go running across the yard, smash the windows with a hammer, breaking the windows, and then hurls cans of gasoline into the house and then lights them, and the governor was woken up when the house was all on fire. And who knows what happened next? Somebody needs to get video of this. There's got to be video cameras all over the place here. Somebody's got to get a video of this and like explain like what happened next. Did he try to enter the house and kill him with a hammer? I'm the best friend he's got in the world. I'm like sitting here arguing like he should have better security. These are major security issues, kind of like Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. Oh, wow, we just like weren't talking to the teams. We just didn't have anybody up on the water tower. Yeah. Is that live? Is that live? Okay. President Trump is live right now with the president of El Salvador. Guys, get me a clean feed of this. Okay. Yes, since we're just going to talk about Donald Trump here in just a second, like why not? Here's Donald Trump live at the White House right now with the president of El Salvador.
And the end of terrorism. And it can be done. I mean, you're doing it already. And I'm sure that people have seen the change in the streets. A long way to go because you're just initiating your second term. But it's clear that, with the numbers at the border, with even in Democrat-run cities, they get a help from the work you're doing. So I'm really happy to be here, honored, and eager to help.
Well, we had a terrible thing happen. We had an administration that allowed people to come in freely into our country from not only South America, but from all over the world, many from the Congo in Africa, Asia, all over the world, Europe, rough parts of Europe. And they came from prisons, and they came from mental institutions, and they came from gangs and the gangs of Venezuela and other places. And hundreds of thousands and even millions of them came. 21 million people altogether, but many of the people that came, just a tremendous percentage of them were criminals, in some cases violent criminals. We had 11,088 known murderers. Half of them murdered more than one person. This was allowed by a man who, what he did to our country is just unbelievable. So we're straightening it out. We're getting them out. But what they did and what that party did to our country, open borders, anybody could come in. As soon as I heard that, I said, every prison's going to be emptied out into our country. That's what happened. And we're straightening it out. And we just had numbers. We had the highest recruiting numbers in the history of our country going into police departments. And a year ago, we had the lowest numbers. You couldn't hire a
biggest change.
Yeah. Nobody's
From
ever
the lowest
seen.
to the highest.
And the military now, Marines, the Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, every slot is, we have the best numbers we've ever had. We call it recruitment numbers. And we've never had anything like it. We had records on at every single level. But very important, the policemen. The policemen are joining forces now that we really were having a hard time with policemen because we weren't protecting our police. Yeah. And we cherish our police. The police are great, and the firemen and everybody else. But we have the highest numbers that we've ever had, the most enthusiasm. Great enthusiasm. And on trade and other things, we're doing great. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars. We made 2 weeks ago, I gave them a little bit of a pause because, you have to show a little flexibility, but we go back to what we have to do. The markets have been very strong once they got used to it, but we were losing $2 billion a day There's no company big like this. This is the biggest deal ever made. Now we're making $3 billion a day. We're a great country, but we had stupid people running this country, and I can say it. But what they've done to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin what they did, and you are helping us out, and we appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you. Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get up at the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually. But it's a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
We're doing
a crazy turnaround.
Christy, could you maybe say a couple of words about the border, how we're doing?
It's just been absolutely phenomenal what a great leader can do. Clear direction. Our laws matter. We should only have people in our country that love us, and the Border Patrol and our ICE officers and law enforcement officers have done fantastic work. So we're proud of them. Now we just need to get the criminals and murderers and rapists and dangerous gang members and terrorist organizations out of our country. So, Mr. President Bukele, we thank you very much for your partnership. It has been wonderful for us to be able to have somewhere to send the worst of the worst and someone to partner with. And we'd like to continue that partnership because it's been a powerful message of consequences. Mr. President, you wanted people to know that there was consequences if you break our laws and harm our people and endanger families. And this is a clear consequence for the worst of the worst, that we have somewhere to put them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we even had this gang member from Venezuela, one of the ones you sent, and we interviewed him just to get some information, etc., from them. And he said, "Oh, I got arrested 6 times, but they released me the 6th time, so it should be released again." And then we said, "Well, but what's the last thing you do?" And he said, "Well, I shot a cop in the leg, but I didn't kill him. I just shot him in the leg." And we're like, this guy was arrested 6 times here in the United States, 6 times. He was released 6 times, and in the he was released 5 times, and the last time he was sent to El Salvador, right? So he's not getting released. But the last time he shot a cop, actually, and he shot him in the leg. So these are, like you said, there's something broken.
It's the liberal establishment, but they're not running things anymore in this country, and we're run by, and I don't say conservative, I don't say anything, we're run by people with great common sense.
Yeah, common sense.
Because it's all common sense. Yeah. It's not liberal conservative, it's common sense.
Exactly.
And, do you allow men to play in women's sports? Do you allow men to box your women and box? Because I know you have a lot of boxing.
That's violence.
That's abuse of a woman.
Against women.
It's abuse of a woman.
Totally.
But we have people that fight to the death because they think men should be able to play in women's sports. And some of those sports, it wouldn't matter much, but it still matters. But some of them are very dangerous for women.
Some years ago, I said a decade ago or so, women rights movements were pressuring so that we enacted specific laws to avoid men abusing women. And I think those laws were great because there were a lot of men abusing women. But now some of the same people are trying to backtrack on that and actually trying to make new laws allowing men to abuse women in sports. So actually, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy. They have weightlifting records, right?
Yeah.
A woman gets up, let's swear, she's incredible. A guy gets up and beats her by 100 pounds. What are you going to do? A record that hadn't been broken in 18 years. They put on an ounce, quarter of an ounce, eighth of an ounce for 18 years. Now they have a guy come up, ping. The whole thing is crazy, but they continue to fight. And I don't like talking about it because I want to save it for just before the next election. I said, my people, don't even talk about it because they'll change. And but I watched this morning, there was a congressman fighting to the death for men to play against women in sports. And you say to yourself, why? What are they doing, right? What are they doing? But your country's not too big in that.
No, of course not.
Donald Trump just said he's running for president again.
Good. That's right. It's a very important form of protection too.
And as you
Donald
can
Trump just
see,
said he's running in the next
most of my
election.
cabinet are women, so
Did you catch that?
Impressive.
yeah.
That's why you
And
run
they're
it.
not DEI hires or anything.
They
They're
can
just
be.
great. at
Hey,
what
I'm going to
they do.
save it for the next election. That's what Trump just said.
This is very impressive. This is a first. We've had women, but we've never had three of them right here. That's
4 and 3
And
men.
look at what we have. You guys feel a little bit mistreated? That's good. I like it. We've been advanced. I've been very advanced in that regard too. We have Pam, who's been so
Yes, I know.
fantastic.
And
Christy, and the most powerful woman they say
I
anywhere in the
know,
world.
exactly.
She's rated.
They're all afraid of her.
Susie Wells. They say, oh, she's tough. Most powerful woman in the world, according to magazines. What do I know?
Yes.
But I think she probably is. Yeah, she probably is.
Congratulations.
And Stephen has done such a great job.
Yes.
We have great
He's
people.
very famous too.
But we love working with him. He really lets them have it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no games.
No. It's very good.
He knows. Do you have any questions, please? Go. Let's not start with CNN because they're just so wrong. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. You repeatedly mentioned last night that Russia's attack on Ukraine was a mistake. What is the exact mistake? And have you given Putin a deadline to actually move toward a ceasefire?
The mistake was letting the war happen. If Biden were competent and if Zelensky were competent, and I don't know that he is. We had a rough session with this guy over here. He just kept asking for more and more. That war should have never been allowed to happen. That war, I went 4 years and Putin wouldn't even bring it up. And as soon as the election was rigged and I wasn't here, that war started. There was no way that war should have been allowed to happen. And Biden should have stopped it. And you take a look at Putin. I'm not saying anybody's an angel, but I will tell you, I went 4 years and it wasn't even a question. He would never. And I told him, don't do it. You're not going to do it. And it was the apple of his eye, but there was no way that he would have done it. All you had to do is lower oil prices. If you lowered oil prices, Biden kept the prices so high because he made it impossible to get it. If you lowered oil prices, you would have never had the war. But you wouldn't have had it with me anyway. That war would have never happened. And I think it's a great abuse. So now what do? You get a country where 25% of its land is gone and the best locations, where millions of people are killed. You haven't reported accurately the death. And this was Biden's war, and I'm trying to stop it. And I think we're going to do a good job. I hope we're going to do. They lose 2,500 young people a week, think on average. Now they're Russians and they're Ukrainians, but it's 2,000. We don't care. It's like whatever it is. They're not from your country. They're not from mine, but I want to stop it. 2,500. It's a killing field. It's like the Civil War. You take a look. I look at the satellite pictures. This should not be happening in our time. Of course, our time can be pretty violent, as we know. But that's a war that should have never been allowed to start. And Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
Have you spoken to President Zelensky, sir, about his offer to purchase more Patriot missile batteries?
Oh, I don't know. He's always looking to purchase missiles. He's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size and then hope that people give you some missiles. If we didn't give them what we gave, remember, I gave them javelins. That's how they won their first big battle with the tanks that got stuck in the mud, and they took them out with javelins. They have an expression that Obama at the time, Obama gave them sheets and Trump gave them javelins. But just something that should have never happened. It's a really shame. The towns are destroyed. Towns and cities are, largely destroyed. They have the spires, the beautiful spires that go up. They say they were the most beautiful in the world in Ukraine for whatever reason, but the most beautiful in the world, they're mostly laying on their side, shattered and broken. And most importantly, you have millions of people dead because of three people. I would say three people. Let's say Putin, number one, but let's say Biden, who had no idea what the hell he was doing, number two, and Zelensky. And all I can do is try and stop it. That's all I want to do. I want to stop the killing. And I think we're doing well in that regard. I think you'll have some very good proposals very soon.
Last question, sir. Have you attributed a motive, sir? Have you attributed a motive through the FBI investigation behind the attack on Governor Josh Shapiro over the weekend?
No, I haven't, but the attacker was not a fan of Trump, I understand.
Good.
Just from what I read and from what I've been told.
Thank you.
The attacker basically wasn't a fan of anybody. It's probably just a whack job. And certainly a thing like that cannot be allowed to happen. Okay. I have a great relationship with this man. I have the best relationship with him. We've known each other. I've known him since he was a very young man, as I said, very, very young. And I was impressed. I said, look at this guy is, in fact, you sort of look like a teenager. You look like a teenager. I said, what kind of a country is this? He grew up well in the last 5 years. I support him. I support him. Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN. Low-rated. Which one is that? Well, let me ask Pam. Would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you, Pam. Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Could you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant.
Here we go.
They're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also,
Yes. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world. And I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
him
Court's
to get
asking
him back?
to.
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about for the court can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Usted lo
President
liberaría,
Bukele.
Presidente Bukele?
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm suppose you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's
I mean,
always
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
This is incredible. This is incredible.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? And that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on your response to 2 days ago.
How long do we have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Please go ahead.
President Trump, how many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Kelly, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous, not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart. When they heard that this very low IQ president, and by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, sir, I've never seen anybody get that that was the highest mark. I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I notice there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, sir, would you like to take a cognitive test? I said, did Biden take one? No. Did anybody take one? No, not too many people took them. I said, what about Obama? Did he take one? No, he didn't take one either. I said, let me be the only one to take one. But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take. But we had a great physical exam, so I know you're going to ask that. And the doctors who are total professionals, Walter Reed Medical Center, they're great, great people. And I visited a soldier that was badly wounded, incredible soldier, lost his leg. And we spent a lot of time with him. I mean, great with his mother. And it was really a very great thing. They do a phenomenal job. I just want to say, Walter Reed, I was there for, 5-6 hours. You were there with me. But I took a full physical and it came out perfecto. So that's good. That means you've got me for a little longer. I'd do something. We'd help them out. Yeah, we help them out. They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
Is it essential for you guys to lock up these prisoners? And do you think more presidents should follow suit like you guys as far as taking a hard stance on trying to get that?
Well, I do. I think everybody has to. I mean, the president said it better than anybody. He said, you know, you have liberty and you have to have liberty, but to have liberty, not everybody is gonna be good. And, you know, some are bad because they're sick. They're mentally deranged, they're bad. And you have to take them, if you're gonna have a country, you're gonna have to take those people out. And we've been doing that. But this was like an unforced error, they would call it, where we had people that may hate our country, or maybe they're just stupid people. I think they're probably stupid people more so. A lot of people said they did it for the vote, but I did better with Hispanic people than they did, because I always use Hispanic. I did better. Your people love me. I saw my poll numbers in your country. I'm through the roof, right? 91%. No, some people think they do it for the vote. But they don't have to do it for the vote. They cheat, you know, they're professional cheaters. That's about the only thing they do well. So we just have had a great relationship, and it's become bigger because of a strange thing that happened. You know, I came back, we had no war in Ukraine. We had no October 7th, Middle East problem. We had nothing. We had no inflation. We didn't have the Afghanistan, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, the Afghanistan, not withdrawing, because I would have been out, you know, I had it all set to bring people out with dignity and pride. That was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan. We didn't have any of that. You wouldn't have had the war with Russia, Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the Middle East problem because Iran was broke. They had no money because we had secondary sanctions on and lots of other sanctions. And now every single thing, got a problem with Iran, but I'll solve that problem. That's almost an easy one. We got to solve a war that should have never started, Ukraine and Russia, and we'll get that solved. And we have to solve problems, and we already solved inflation. You know, if you look at the numbers are incredible, actually. Stock market's up, and we're not letting other countries take advantage of this country like they have for the last 40 years. So thank you very much. You have a question, please?
Mr. President, thank you so much. You scored another major investment win this morning. NVIDIA pledged to build its AI supercomputer, the first time ever, right here in the United States.
Thank you. That's a question I like. That's true.
What is your reaction to this announcement, sir, and how will this positively benefit Americans across America?
Well, it's one of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear, because NVIDIA, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world, between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest. And the other biggest we already have coming in and spending $300 billion, as you know, they announced 2 weeks ago. But NVIDIA is so highly respected. And this was an announcement that a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big. And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th and because of a thing called tariffs. As I say, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. After love, God, relationship. The press actually hit me. I said, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. What about family, love, God? I got hit even on that. You understand? I said, okay. So now I say it's my 5th most favorite word, because they get you on anything. But that NVIDIA, it's one of the great companies of the world, modern, super modern companies, controls segments that nobody, you know, sort of controls the world in a sense. And they're coming in here in the biggest way with hundreds of billions of dollars, not like millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. And I'm honored by it. And I want to thank Jensen and all of the people that we deal with. They're great people. They're brilliant people. And without tariffs, they wouldn't be doing it. Thank you very much. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Considering additional sanctions against Russia after their latest attack, And do you have an update on the rate and when you might announce?
Well, I already have sanctions on Russia. I put them there. If you remember, Nord Stream 2, that's the big pipeline that goes through Europe. I stopped it. That's Russia's pipeline, the largest pipeline, I think, in the world, goes to Germany. And I stopped it. And when Biden came in, he approved it. And then they say, oh, I'm friendly with Russia. No. Putin said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you when you're my enemy. I stopped the biggest economic job they ever had. I stopped at coal, right? It was dead. You know that, right? And Biden came in and he immediately approved it. What was that all about? And it's a pipeline that takes care of a lot of the needs. Now, it was a very controversial thing, but I stopped it and Biden approved it. Question? No, not you again. Not you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Trump is feisty.
Pharmaceuticals, we're going to do. We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come. And we're going to be doing that. That's going to be like we have on cars. We have, as you know, a 25% tariff on cars. We have a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. And that's what that category fits right now. I have a timeline, not too distant future. And we're doing it because we want to make our own drugs. We're doing it because we want to make our own steel and aluminum, lumber, other things. And they're all coming in. We have record numbers, $7 trillion. Since I announced, like a month and a half ago, since I came in, we have over $7 trillion being invested in the country. We didn't have $1 trillion. We didn't have $500 billion for some of these guys. I didn't know what the hell they were doing. So we have the largest investment that we've ever heard of, and we're only 2 months in. And that'll continue at levels that you've never seen before. It's what's going to happen. And even the stock market's up today. It's we also had, a lot of people didn't say it the way it was. We had the largest gain in the stock market in history on every single category last week. That was a nice game because we get a little hit because people didn't understand the power of our country economically if you use it right. Do you have something to say on that, JD?
Yes, sir. I mean, look, for 40 years, we have lost manufacturing capacity. Workers have seen their wages stagnate. And some of the most critical things that we need, from the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we give to our children, the antibiotics that we give to our kids, to the weapons that we actually need to fight a war, if God forbid we had to fight a war, we don't make enough of that stuff. And so President Trump ran explicitly on changing that. Yes, as the president mentioned, it caused a little bit of disruption in the market, but I actually think over the long term, workers are going to benefit, stocks are going to go up, American businesses are going to benefit as we reinvest and reindustrialize our country.
And the auto workers and the Teamsters and all of the unions, not traditionally Republican, but I'm winning those unions by, we're up 40, 50 points on the Democrats. They're losing everything. They're losing everything because they just have policies that are not believable. They fight for policies that are 5% popular, and nobody knows who the 5% are. I mean, nobody can find the 5%. But if you go back to Ohio, and by the way, we have the great championship team from Ohio coming in today, right?
Very big day.
And that's going to be a little bit later. And that'll be, if you want to stick around, I'll introduce you to some nice people. You'll see some very large people, right? You'll see some people that even you have not seen. People like this. These are big. These are 6'7", 380 pounds with no fat. Okay, that's pretty good, right? But the team, the national championship team, is being honored today at the White House, so that'll be exciting. You around? You want to stay around? I'll have you up there. You can tell them all about your prison, how you have to behave. When you go to that prison. Okay. Who else is there? Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
Just destroying CNN.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Is that a decision?
Well, they have to solve their problem very quickly. Iran wants to deal with us, but they don't know how. They really don't know how. We had a meeting with them on Saturday. We have another meeting scheduled next Saturday. I said, that's a long time. You know, that's a long time. So I think they might be tapping us along. But Iran has to get rid of the concept of a nuclear weapon. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. He can't have a nuclear weapon. Nobody can have. We can't have anybody having nuclear weapons. You know, we can't have nuclear weapons. And I think they're tapping us along because we're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. And I had Iran perfect. You had no attacks. You would have never had October 7th in Israel, the attack by Hamas. Because Iran was broke. They were stone cold broke when I was president. And I don't want to do it. I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us. I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Does that include a potential strike on Iranian nuclear facility?
Of course it does.
Just a follow-up question, clarification. You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens, but criminals to El Salvador.
Love it.
Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized immigrants?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What do you think? There's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in. And I made the statement when I heard about this a long time ago now, 4 years ago, when I heard that this guy was having open borders, I said every single criminal from all over the world is going to be dumped into our country. And that's what happened. The jails of the Congo were emptied out. The jails of Venezuela were emptied out. And you know what happened? Their crime went way down. But now Venezuela has other problems. You know what the problem is? They have no money. Yeah. Because I shut off their oil, and we put secondary tariffs because they're not doing what's right over there. They know what to do. We spoke to them. I spoke to them. They know what to do. But they have no money. Venezuela has no money. But Iran had no money, and Iran behaved so beautifully. And then Biden took all those secondary tariffs and tariffs on. I told China, you can't buy oil. If you buy oil from Iran, China, I told it to President Xi, then we no longer want you to do business with the United States of America. And those ships disappeared from that harbor so quickly. China. Get along great with China.
Are the talks with Iran productive? Do you want to continue that?
What?
The talks with Iran, do you believe those are productive? Do you want to continue that?
I think Iran could be a great country as long as it doesn't have nuclear weapons. If they have nuclear weapons, they'll never get a chance to be a great country. They will never get a chance. It won't even come close.
Sir, on tariffs.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yesterday, you mentioned short-lived product exemptions. Which specific products are you considering, and how long is short-lived? Weeks, months?
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places. And they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. No, sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it.
there'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently, and that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. We're the greatest economic power in the world if we're smart. If we're not smart, we're going to hurt our country very badly. We lost with China over the Biden years trillions of dollars on trade, trillions of dollars. And he let them fleece us. And we can't do that anymore. And you know what? I don't blame China at all. I don't blame President Xi. I like him. He likes me. I mean, who knows? Who the hell cares?
Do you have any updates on?
But you know what? What?
Do you have any updates with talks with China?
No, let me just tell you this. I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America. Don't forget, the European Union was formed to do just that. The European Union was formed to hurt the United States and on trade. And they get us on NATO because they don't pay their bills. But now, since I got involved, they have been paying their bills. I took in over $600 billion for NATO. Nobody took in anything. I mean, they were all delinquent. They had 8 nations out of 28 paid their bills. The rest of them were way delinquent. And I said, if you don't pay your bills, we're not going to protect you anymore. And the money poured in over 600. The Secretary General last week made that statement. He said, I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't get anybody to pay because the United States was footing the bill for NATO. Well, we got hurt there, and we got hurt on trade, likewise, European Union. And they've got to come to the table. And they're trying to. They're trying to. But the European Union has taken terrible advantage. They don't take our food products. They don't take our cars. We have millions of their cars, BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, many others. They come in by the millions. There are no Chevrolets in Munich, I can tell you that. I said to Angela Merkel when she was there, as she was letting millions of people infiltrate Germany, which was not so good we would call them illegal immigrants, but she made them legal. But I said to her, and I get along with her very well, I said, how many Chevrolets do we have in Munich or Frankfurt? Why, none, Donald, none. I said, you're right. And yet we take in millions and millions of cars. No, those days are over. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Head it out the door. Thanks, guys.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's okay. Why do we take these live? Because of that. Because of Donald Trump just roasting Caitlin Collins from CNN and the entire administration tossing her around like a rag doll. I've never seen anything like it. Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, all coming in over from the top rope on CNN. It was a dominant performance. I love watching this kind of stuff. It's sort of the most entertaining outcome is the most likely, and it's just fun to take. It's just fun to take, and I don't want to be rude, ladies and gentlemen, to our guests who have been very patiently waiting. Michael Flynn is somebody who watched along with us. I got to tell you, General Flynn, next time we just need to bring General Flynn on screen, and we just have a watch party together. It's so entertaining. It's so damn entertaining. We live in the greatest timeline. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome retired United States Army Lieutenant General Michael Flynn to the program. General, I really appreciate your patience with this.
Oh, no problem.
It's a news show, and when Trump, they weren't planning on being live.
I'll tell you, Benny, anyone that just watched that, I mean, what an education in leadership, an education in diplomacy, an education in common sense. I mean, Bukele sitting there as a young president of a small nation, but a good partner to the United States of America. What an education that he just got in how to deal with a whole range of issues, not just the media, but the entire aspect of what leadership is supposed to do. And in this case, American leadership. And man, I'll tell you, one of the things that I said after Stephen Miller gave the answer, because Stephen was on with another news network this morning. And when Stephen gave that answer, I said, and I don't know if your guys heard me, I said, Benny, you got to make that one go viral. I mean, that answer was extraordinary. And for people to understand what it is that we're dealing with, I mean, and Trump keeps going back to it. This is just basic common sense. And it's not that Biden didn't have it. Biden didn't have it. I mean, or Obama. The idea of leftist progressive liberalism, which is really symptoms of a political ideology, which, frankly, in my read of it, is really leaning us towards a real strong sense of socialism or communism. That's what we're dealing with. And so these people, they don't have common sense. And what Trump is doing, I mean, the greatest leaders that I've ever studied and that I ever worked with have that, and I've worked with Trump. They have that character trait that just is it's so grounded. And Trump is so grounded in just pure common sense, period. I mean, he's obviously smart as a whip. I mean, he's unbelievably, has his fingertip feel of every single aspect of what is going on in our country and in the world right now. And he's also got the depth of experience where he goes back and talks about Merkel, and he talks about the Nord Stream pipeline and all the different things that he laid out there. I was just, I took some notes while he was talking, because it actually helps me. It helps me understand, because I get, I'm going to talk to a group of veterans tonight. We're up here in Central Florida, and it gives me the ability to be able to articulate the direction that our country must go. It must go. We don't have a choice. I mean, like Trump says, these people were just stupid. And, when you think about stupidity, you go and you look at some of the pedigrees and the kinds of background and education that a lot of these people have had that are on the liberal progressive left. Those are soft words for communism. So I'll just, throw that on the table. But when you talk about some of these people are Ivy League educated. They got all kinds of pedigrees. They got, master's degrees, doctor. They've had all kinds of experience in government. And all they've done, Benny, is they've taken our government and put it into the toilet bowl. That's what they've done. And Trump now, thank God that he did this. Thank God that he did this. Thank God that he ran again and he won. And so to your audience, that's my guess is probably a strong, a conservative audience, but I guarantee there's a lot of others out there that are from sort of the other side of the aisle, so to speak. But the American people need to understand that we dodged a major bullet. And for anybody that listened for the last half hour or 40 minutes or so of that Q&A, that press conference,
yes,
I mean, you saw it in spades. Everything that we were dealing with, from the wars in Europe, the wars in the Middle East, the situation with China, to our own domestic issues right here, the price of a gallon of gas, the price of a gallon of milk, the price of a dozen eggs, was just addressed by one man, President Donald J. Trump. We are blessed to have that guy back in office, and man, we dodged a bullet.
President Trump literally dodged a bullet, and I want to talk with you about the Trump assassinations in just a moment. But since you've fought terrorism around the world, General, and since you have been key in keeping terrorists out of America, kind of a wild thing for the press there to scream, bitch, whine, and moan about bringing terrorists back into this country, even terrorists that are citizens of another country. I mean, that is one thing if you have what happened with Josh Shapiro, right? That seems to be homegrown terrorism, and we disavow it. But the media, in the same hand, is like condemning what happened to Josh Shapiro and then saying you should bring back another terrorist from a foreign country. To have the leader of that country sitting in the Oval, it's cinema, General, sitting in the Oval Office going, no.
Yeah,
no,
terrorism.
I'm not gonna let him back. What did he say? I'm not gonna smuggle a terrorist into America.
Yes, and a guy that's his citizen. It's his citizen.
Bro,
the idea the idea of a terrorist, Benny, or terrorism. Terrorism is a disease. It's a disease, and it can inflict different types of people, like the guy that the arson up in Pennsylvania. I mean, if I got it right, the guy killed his parents apparently, and then they were in his home where he was at for a couple of weeks. So there's a real sickness. So there's a sickness to some of these people. But And I say this a lot, because people go, well, he's a lone wolf, a lone wolf. I don't believe in lone wolves. I always say that, somebody else always knows. And in the initial investigation of that particular terrorist, because he is a terrorist, homegrown, he actually made comments to other people. So other people were aware. We'll find out more as things come out. Same with the guys who tried to kill Trump in Pennsylvania and the other assassin down here in Florida. But the idea of terrorism and terrorists, so we had to designate these Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and also not just the Mexican ones, but like the Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, and there's others. Like Trump brought up the dumping of the prisoners. I think he said from Chad, if I'm not mistaken. So you designate these organizations because they're not acting as they're not like criminals, and you commit a crime and then law enforcement comes in and they do a sort of a reactive investigation and they find out who committed the crime and they gather the evidence and you go to court. No, terrorism is something that you have to be very proactive, when you're dealing with it. And that's what Trump has done. Trump has said enough of the reactive, responses that we have had to the not just our border invasion, but these drug cartels and these other organizations that are committing terrorism inside of the United States. He wants to be far more proactive. And that's why we see the joining of people like Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, some of these other nations that are partner nations like Bukele out of El Salvador. So this is being very, very proactive. This is a very proactive approach. This is totally different than what we've ever had a president of the United States do. On the battlefield, I can tell you, on the battlefield, we needed a change on the battlefield, and we did this in the world of special operations and counterterrorism operations. We changed from allowing these guys to commit, heinous acts, beheadings, car bombings, and we started to go after, and then digging into the evidence, we started to go after their organizations. We started to go after their money. We started to go after the leadership. We started to go after the flow of where these people were coming from. They're coming from different countries around the, I'm now talking about the Middle East. They come from countries in North Africa. They come from the various stands in the Central Asian republics. They come from up in Chechnya. These are guys that were coming in, and we had a very reactive approach early on in the war in the Middle East. We then came in and said, nope, we're not going to do this. We're going to take a very proactive approach. It's just basic common sense. Trump has done the same thing, and I'm telling you, the joining together of resources from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the U.S. intelligence community, and I'm a big fan. I'll tell you what, I think Tulsi Gabbard has done an amazing job, and she's right in the middle of this stuff. So the intelligence community, and it's not that is not an easy thing, because you've got to flow intelligence into multiple organizations. And then, of course, the pointy end of the spear is the guy that's running it for Trump, and that's Tom Homan. And that we could have no better people running these types of operations. And, Pete Hegseth down in Panama recently, basically talking to, I think it's Molina down there, the President Molina down in Panama, talking about reestablishing a foothold down in Panama because we know that we have a Chinese problem in Panama. But, to kind of cut to the chase here, I think one of the things that Trump has done, and he's done in a really, really amazing way, is he has taken a stance, which I would say is sort of a forward-leaning stance. It's like a football player, who's about to knock you on your rear end, or he's on his toes. He's on his toes all the time. Yep. We're going to have, with a big country, big, beautiful country like the United States of America, we're going to have, hits and misses sometimes. And there's going to be some things. And Trump is going to look at those and he's going to go, okay, like he loves the phrase unforced errors. We're going to have unforced errors here and there. No problem. But what he's got is he's got a big vision, and he's moving that entire team. And frankly, there's other people that are players in this. So trust me when for your audience, trust me when I say that there's a lot of people that Trump is bringing in to his team. Some are, of course, in government, and you just saw a bunch of them during the Q&A, during the press conference with Bukele. But many of us are outside and helping, because there's a lot of experience that you can bring to bear from people outside the government as well as those inside. And I need people to know, because the previous administration, and frankly, all the way going back to Obama as well, they never really did this. They relied solely on their own little knowledge, their own little power bases, and they frankly did whatever the hell they wanted to do, and they drove our country into the ground. And what Trump is doing is he is relying on so many smart people and just his own grounded framework of common sense. We're blessed to have Donald Trump in that seat right now because the situation around the world, the situation here at home is not great. And imagine any other leader in that seat than Donald Trump. I can't.
So it was a fraction of a centimeter that put President Trump in that seat, the largest observed miracle in human history, Donald Trump dodging that bullet. You bring up the assassinations and you bring up terrorism, and you said somebody always knows. That's really struck me, General. Someone always knows. We have photos of Matthew Thomas Crooks before he shot Trump on the phone. Seems to be making a phone call on FaceTime. You can literally see it. Somebody knew. Somebody knew that a bullet was heading towards Trump's head that day. Yep. Who was it? And now, last week, we have news that I cannot wait to talk with you about, that Ryan Ralph was planning on using American-made weapons, say either a Stinger missile, an RPG, to shoot President Trump's plane out of the sky. Yep. We have his own text messages. His text messages were released communicating with the Ukrainian military saying, get me these weapons. It's in the DOJ filing right here. You can see him say, I want to kill Trump. He's saying this on apps. He's sending these messages. Someone in the Ukrainian hierarchy must have known that this was going to happen, or they were plotting this. Our intel agencies who've hacked Tucker Carlson. Tucker says, hey, the NSA just got all of my messages. Yep. They just took everything. They took everything from my phone, my email, my Signal chats, all the encrypted stuff. The NSA just scooped it all up whenever they wanted to. Dude, this guy was the most obvious assassin. And we still know nothing. He was allowed to be within feet of President Trump, and he was armed. The Secret Service had to shoot at him. What's going on here, General? It seems like we know so little. We know nothing about these guys.
Yeah, here's what I would say about this, and this is for whatever, because I know there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of frustration right now, and I'm frustrated to a degree. But I will get over it. But I do get frustrated on accountability. And if people that follow me on X, I always talk about accountability. Like something happens, a good executive order or release of files, crossfire hurricane stuff, JFK, all these things. I do want accountability. In this specific case, I'll bet a dime to a dollar that somebody else always knows. When somebody goes, well, it's a lone wolf. The media loves to say that, a lone wolf, especially if it's like a guy on the right? There's no lone wolves. Somebody always knows. And what we're going to learn, and these have to be dug into, because these guys that were executing the task of trying to assassinate the president of the United States, they were executing it based on a tasking from somebody. Okay? So let's take the JFK assassination files that we now have, we've now learned about JFK and his assassination. And who was behind the assassination of JFK? The CIA. So, this is the unadulterated truth, right? I mean, we know. So now you look at other things that have happened over time in our country. And I can tell you, there's going to be other attempts against Trump. There are people, like I say, I talk about John Brennan a lot, Benny, out there doing nefarious things. John Brennan, he's not the leader. He's a soldier. I think Obama's another guy who I say he's a little bit higher up in the chain of command, so to speak, as you use military jargon. But I think he's also a soldier. I think that there is a body of people that looks at what Trump is doing with the world. Never mind the United States of America. This global competition between globalism and, frankly, nationalism or populism, and the protection of one's sovereignty, and in our case, our freedom and our constitutional republic. There's a group of people, Benny, that do not want that at all. And they were ready to move forward under, a Kamala Harris or a Joe Biden, whoever was going to defeat Trump. I mean, look at what we've learned from the Social Security numbers being given to illegal immigrants in order for them to vote. I mean, so they really thought that they were going to win. So I'm putting some pieces together here for your audience, because an assassination attempt against a president of the United States, or in this case, a candidate while he was the candidate, and there's been some other threats against him, I know. These are not small things. These are not some kid, in Pennsylvania or wherever. Look at what we have learned that has already been exposed. So we're going to learn more. There will be more that will come out. Some of these things the Secret Service has to protect certain things. And the reason why, so there may be pieces of evidence that don't come out that'll stay, sensitive, law enforcement sensitive, or even classified, because there might be a technique or a procedure that the Secret Service has used in order to get that piece of information. So, I do know that there will be more information that will come out on these guys. Every time I talk to Trump, I always tell him, my number one thing for Trump is, be safe, be very safe. Listen to your guys, listen to those who you trust around you. And I'm a big fan of Sean Curran at the director of the Secret Service. I mean, he's a good man. He's actually the guy in the very famous photo. So there will be more. Those are the things that I'm less concerned about. I'm more concerned about other evidence that we need to start to see.
Yes.
And we're seeing it coming out on Crossfire Hurricane, coming out on January 6th. And this is where Pam Bondi and others, we've got to get, the administration has got to get a guy like the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Ed Martin, got to get him confirmed, right? He's a powerhouse. And this is why guys like Schiff are going against him. Schiff is going against him because Schiff knows Ed Martin might turn around and go, we're going to start investigating some of these things that I just mentioned. And trust me, folks, these people are going to be caught dead to rights because they were behind it. I mean, they're behind it. So it's a long answer to your question, but there's things that you can share, but there's other procedures that you don't want to make. You want to make sure that some future nut job or some future assassin who has been tasked by a group of people, because you're right to show that picture with the kid on his phone. The evidence that we now know this guy was buying, he wanted to buy either RPGs or Stinger missiles. I mean, from Ukraine, right? I mean, so I get, like I said, there's no such thing as a lone wolf. Somebody always knows.
I know that we're hard up on time here, but really quickly, General, what should happen to Ukraine? Because clearly, this guy had connections. Ryan Routh had connections to Ukraine. He'd been to Ukraine. He's been recruiting fighters. He knows the generals there. He knows the war fighters there. He had a no-look visa policy to bring in terrorists to Ukraine to fight for Ukraine. He's a Ukraine fanatic. And now he's going to Ukraine to get American-made munitions to kill Trump and someone new in Ukraine. I think this obviously is why President Trump treated Zelensky the way that he did in the Oval Office. Yeah. But what should happen to Ukraine if it's found that they were at the very least complicit in the potential killing of Trump?
Yeah. So my guess right now, and I'm speculating a little bit here, but that what the FBI is doing, there's a couple other organizations, but mainly the FBI is doing now is they're going and pulling that thread. So all the way down into Ukraine. Who was this guy talking to? You can pull, and they'll pull the financial records. They'll pull the phone records. They'll pull the records of people in Ukraine, because that's treated a little bit differently between U.S. law and international law. So they're going to go and dig into this stuff. I guarantee it. They're going to go down to the Nats rear end, and they're going to find the people that he was talking to, and they'll go, okay, well, what did he say? Who was he working with? Was there any associates with him when he met in these various meetings to purchase this stuff? Who was going to pay for it? Is this guy financially independent, wealthy? And was he going to pay for it? So there's a lot of little questions that got to be tied together, or the answers got to be knotted together here, and that'll come back. And when that comes back, trust me, there's going to be hell to pay, because there are people in Ukraine that were part of this, guarantee. And now you got to say, okay, Zelensky, was this some group that you were aware of? Are these guys in your military? Where were these weapons coming from? Were these weapons that were being brought in out of a warehouse, or were these being black marketed into Ukraine? And if they were being black marketed into Ukraine, where were those stingers coming from? Were they coming from Syria? Were they coming from Libya? Were they coming from Afghanistan? So there's a whole, thread that's got to be pulled, and we got to learn these things, because if we don't, because there's another Stinger missile out there waiting somewhere, Benny. Trust me, there's another RPG waiting out there somewhere that has enough range at a certain distance to be able to take an aircraft out of the sky. And that's what we have to be so smart about how this is done. Now, last word from me, Benny, is that, will the FBI under Kash Patel, are there enough good guys and gals in the FBI that are going to take this shit, excuse my Irish, seriously and get in there and dig into the kinds of things that I'm talking about? And I mean, do it quickly, so we don't have another problem. We don't have some other nut job or somebody that they've decided that they know they can grab hold of this guy, and this guy will go do our bidding, and we got to give him the right equipment, and he's going to go into some town in the U.S. or when Trump's flying around in his various international foray that he's about to go out internationally here within the next couple of weeks, big trip. We've got to make sure that he's protected. And that's why I think that some of that information has not been forthcoming.
It's a terrifying prospect and proposition. I know that the president listens to you. We're certainly happy to have you as a friend, General Flynn, and shocking stuff that you just said about Ukraine.
Yeah.
I hope it's not true, but I know that it is. I mean, my goodness. General Flynn, everybody needs to go follow. Obviously, you already do. He has millions of subscribers, but please go over to X and follow General Flynn right now. Make sure that you are locked in with the fighters who are fighting for us. And General Flynn, one of the OGs, who's been fighting for America his entire life. Godspeed, sir.
Yep. Thank you, Benny. God bless.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? You just never know. It was, what did we get? 1 hour sleep after UFC before we had to head back? We have 1 hour. You just never know what the news cycle will bring. You better be locked in and prepared, and that is why I drink here we go, right on the mug today, my Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee, I've been drinking it, and you've heard me talk about it for a very long time. There's a reason. Blackout Coffee is the hard work American grit coffee. There's a lot of that going around. It is very fashionable, being able to brawl, being able to fight, and being able to bring energy to fight the communists. And also, it's just damn good coffee. I got to tell you, it has powered this show for a long time. We're thrilled about our partnership with Blackout Coffee, and they just opened a massive warehouse. They can get you your coffee quick, fast, and without any grift. Blackout Coffee is premium, small batch, roasted coffee made right here in America. Best coffee out there. If you're supporting a company that stands for something, support Blackout Coffee, not the dirty Marxists from Seattle. If you believe in hard work and American values, Blackout Coffee is for you. Code Benny gets you 20% off your first order. Support the American dream. Drink Blackout at blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Code Benny for 20% off your first order. Stop settling. Start drinking real coffee. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on here. You never know when President Trump's just going to do an impromptu press conference and just let her rip. We have, please confirm with me, our next guest. Yes? Fantastic. Okay. Wonderful. I apologize. We have our guests booked out, and we are now an hour off schedule, and so I just wanted to check in with our producers. Dr. Carol Swain is the author of Diversity Without Discrimination, former professor of political science and a professor of law at Vanderbilt University, and it's our honor to welcome her to the show now. Doctor, thank you for being on and for being so patient. Donald Trump just kind of lets her rip every once in a while, randomly, with a press conference. They're always entertaining, and we appreciate your patience.
I'm very excited about being on your show, and I very much enjoyed that press conference. I love Donald Trump, and I knocked on doors in Pennsylvania in 2016 and 2020.
Yes, all right. So, then that's the state that Donald Trump won, and he won by appealing to people who you talk about in your book, actually, by appealing to people who've been sort of left behind by the system and who have a bit of a chip on their shoulder, want this country to function for them, the working class, and actually working class young men in particular swung extremely hard for President Trump. And black men voted for Donald Trump by historic margins. Since you were on the ground working with Trump, did you see that happening? Did you predict that? Did you know Trump was going to win on Election Day?
For 2024?
Yeah.
I knew that he was getting a lot of black support because one of my sons, my oldest son, who didn't openly support Trump in 2020, 2024, he became an activist and he works for Nissan, and he was using his social media in such a way that I was afraid he'd get fired. But he didn't get fired. He took the heat, and he was thrilled when Trump was elected. And one of his wish list items is to meet Donald Trump in person and shake his hand.
Sounds like
so. I do have a son that is an avid Trump supporter.
Sounds like something you would probably be able to negotiate. I have a feeling. We were with Byron Donalds this weekend at the UFC, and he brought all of his boys. He has 3 young men, his sons, and they all got to meet Trump. And that was a very happy family.
Well, you introduced me, but I want to say something that you may not know is that I was one of 12 children born in rural poverty, dropped out of school after the 8th grade, married at 16, went to a community college and got the first of 5 degrees, graduated, so I have degrees in different topics, but I graduated with a bachelor's degree, magna cum laude, while working 40 hours a week, nights and weekends at the community college library. Never anticipated becoming a professor. People came into my life who didn't look like me. They steered me into academia. I was early tenured at Princeton, won national prizes, but been cited by the Supreme Court. And these issues of diversity, equity, and affirmative action, they're dear to my heart. I'm old enough to have lived in the segregated South, watched these things unfold. So when I talk about it, I know what I'm talking about.
This is very different than something I wanted to ask you about, Doctor, which is somebody who has no idea what the hell she's talking about, Jasmine Crockett, who said that black people should never be allowed to farm ever again. She said it right here. I know this is literally what she says. Let's play this first couple seconds here.
Had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands.
Got it. She's a contender
You're
in
not.
2028.
You're not. We done
I would
picking
love
cotton.
to see her.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So let's. I would like to get your response to this. Yeah, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
I was born in the country, and I live in Nashville, and I have a garden, and my only regret is that it's not big enough. And so I'm still farming, and the statement that we need immigrants, to pick our crops and clean our hotel rooms and take care of our children, that's what the progressives that I have worked with all of my life, that's what they say. And she is nothing original about Jasmine Crockett. They have brought in Black people, I would say Claudine Gay and various ones, and they have indoctrinated them, and they spew the white liberal talking points. And so that's all she's spewing. I've been hearing this. I have 2 books on immigration. Nothing new there.
So she also said in a follow-up interview with CNN that the reason that our grocery prices and mortgages are so high is because we deported criminal aliens. Can you make any sense of that? You're the professor here.
No.
Is there a reason why housing prices are high because we deported all the illegal aliens? I'm at a loss.
Now,
I went to community college too, so maybe you can help me out.
Other than for entertainment purposes, why is Jasmine Crockett getting so much attention? There's nothing intelligent that comes out of her mouth. She should not be in Congress. And one of the reasons we have so many problems in America, especially in the Black communities, is that we have the wrong so-called Black leaders in Congress. And I've said for a long time, we don't need the Congressional Black Caucus, or if there's an Asian caucus. We should not have racial caucuses in Congress, and we should not have people like that at the microphone pretending to represent a group of people.
Yes, that's right. She also is a code switcher. It's very interesting. You can hear her accent when she ran for office. It was it's like she was doing Shakespeare. And then when she gets to Congress, whoo baby, it went full world star. But that I guess that's something for her and her therapist. You asked recently on X why you don't get an opportunity to debate specific scholars. Here's a Princeton professor who called 78 million Americans racist for voting for Donald Trump. We chose a felon because we didn't want to elect a black woman, he says on MSNBC. And then you said, why don't I get to debate these scholars? So we wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to this. Is 100 million Americans, are they all racist? And did people vote for a felon because they didn't want to elect a black woman?
Absolutely not. And a fair number of black people, Hispanic people, Asians, every group, the American people voted for Donald Trump. And so the left, all they do is racialize everything. And I have tried, and people have tried to set up debates between me and some of these university professors, even Cornell West, and they won't debate me. And I would love to go on CNN or MSNBC. I used to be a contributor for CNN. They won't have me on.
Probably because they're scared of the answers that you're giving here. Probably because they watch clips like this and they follow you on X. It's very entertaining, by the way. Everyone's got to follow. Okay, so this is you kind of bring up like an important question about the wrong voices getting elevated, and thus you can go track race relations in America, and you can see just this absolute cliff that falls from like the 70s and 80s. You can go pull up Gallup numbers, race relations, please.
Right.
In the it's like for my entire life, in like 70s or 80s, the Gallup polling was said race relations in America is fine. And then Barack Obama becomes president, and it falls through the floor to like the 20s. We're like in the 20s or like low teens now, which is terrible. Nobody wants that to be the case. What happened there? It went off over a cliff at around 2012, 2013.
Well, Benny, I can tell you that in 2002, while I was a professor, I published a book through Cambridge Press, The New White Nationalism in America, Its Challenged Integration. It was one of the books that the Naval Academy pulled from their list. They made a mistake because I talked about the legitimate issues that white Americans had when it came to racial preferences, globalism, loss of jobs, black on white crime, and the multiculturalism and the identity politics that included everyone except white people. And I warned that this would be a devil's brew for racial unrest. And my solution and recommendation was that we move away from identity politics towards the American national identity. When Barack Obama got elected and started doing what he was doing, I felt like if I wanted to start a race war in America, I would do exactly what the Democrats were doing, exactly what Barack Obama did. And one of the things about Obama, I never voted for him. I never voted for him because I knew that he was not the person that gave that 2004 talk that we all at the Democratic Convention. Well, we thought he was, he was America's solution to race problems, and all of that was just, a setup. We learned about Reverend Wright's church, that he was in a black nationalist church. There was so much about that man that didn't add up. And yes, he fueled racial unrest and animosity in America. And the actions he's taken shows that he doesn't care about black youth and black people. Otherwise, he would not have been behind the actions that have pretty much demonized police. In black communities, crime is so high. One thing they do need is police. But the people that push the hatred and tell young black men they ought to have a chip on their shoulders, that someone is taking something from them, they don't care about black people. They don't care about black lives.
And this is a really interesting setup for this current moment that we're having with this stabbing in Texas, where a white teenager was stabbed by a black teenager. They were at a track meet. There was allegedly an altercation. They're differing accounts, but even a perceived insult, like somebody saying words to you, doesn't mean a death sentence. Now, you can go back to the Gallup polling and find where it fell off a cliff, as like exactly corresponds with Barack Obama saying Trayvon Martin would have been my son. And it seems to be, as you just said, like sort of hard-coded that there's a system against you and you better be ready to kill at any moment. And
well, you know,
and so I wanted to get your take on this, since you've written so extensively on it. I want to get your take on, you know, what's going on in this case, and what will be the result, because it does seem, Doctor, that they are ratcheting up for, as you just said, more race wars, race riots, trying to turn this into a massive issue.
Well, I can tell you that after Obama got elected and I saw what he was doing, all of my career, I was never interested in Marxism and the communism. I just was focused on Congress and various other issues. I started studying Marxism, and clearly this idea of pitting groups against one another, creating conflict, destroying institutions, that is what Obama was so skilled in. And so that's how critical race theory and DEI and all of that seep down into every institution in America. And when it comes to that stabbing in Texas, I fault the progressives and anyone who would defend kid gloves for the young man that took the life of the person that he had the altercation with. Because I've heard people argue that, well, he put his hands on him. That's not a justification for a death sentence. And what's happened in the Black community, the Black on Black violent crime rate, as well as Black on white, there seems to be a total disregard for human life at any stage of development. And I think that there's no way you can justify that the stabber was right. And to me, he's just a reflection of the kind of violence we see every day in Black communities. And it worries me because I have great grandchildren. I have a grandson I'm very invested in. I worry about the Black culture and the messages that come. And the white liberals, I blame them more than I blame the Black buffoons that follow them. Because the Black leaders, if they want to call themselves Black leaders, they need to be out there addressing the crime. And every time you see, you know, a lot of violent crime or these kids are getting beaten up in school, it's almost always a Black kid that's, you know, has a white kid down, or they're creating an environment where no one can get an education. There's no way you can justify that. And even with the Trump administration, as much as I love Donald Trump, some of the things that he's done with race, he needs to go further. And you know, we have to go beyond, you know, Black people come to the White House for Black History Month. I'd say get rid of Black History Month, just have American History Year. We have to speak truth about the crime problem. Otherwise, we'll never be able to address the racial problems in America. There will be no unity, because whether white people express it or not, everyone knows what the problem is.
Well, it's reflected in the data, and it's reflected in the data. There's a disproportionate, here's the graph that we were showing about race relations falling off a cliff. It's a disproportionate amount of data pointing to young Black youths being incredibly violent and far outsized in the murder rates and in the violence rates. And that seems to be like a question that has to be taken head on, but it isn't helped with 500,000 people donating to Carmelo Anthony's GoFundMe when you can murder somebody and then get a lot of money for it. That's crazy. This is a system that is broken here. The judge just lowered the bond for Carmelo Anthony down to $250,000 for stabbing and murdering a kid. I don't care what his it doesn't matter. You stabbed and murdered someone,
right?
Like it is irrelevant if it's some old man sitting on a park bench, right, or a kid at a track meet. There's zero justification to ever stab and murder somebody, no matter what they say to you.
Well,
But this seems to be this individual is getting rewarded, Doctor.
Well, he's certainly being rewarded, and for a while after George Floyd, it seemed as if the fastest way to get rich in America for some Black people was to have a relative killed by a police officer, because the city just immediately settled regardless of the circumstances. And I think that in the situation of the Black violence, it is totally irresponsible not to address it and call it out for what it is. And some of the progressives and even some of the conservatives will say, oh, well, we have to make excuses because they don't have daddies. It's true, they don't have daddies, but that's no justification. And I think that there is a moral failing, that there's so much focus on people about, I don't want to violate church and state. We don't want to have religion in school. But the young people that have no hope, they have no hope for themselves. They devalue their own lives as well as the people that they're killing. They need a serious intervention. And if we had leaders in America, and not just Black leaders, real leaders in America, they would call it out, they would address it, and some change would take place. And Bob Woodson of the Woodson Center, he's about the only high-profile Black leader. Brandon Tatum, there's some other people. I think that Turning Point USA and the people that were involved with Brexit, they are trying, but that should be something that we should be united on. The Black leaders have failed Black America, anyone who calls themselves a Black leader for the most part. And so it's time for other leaders to step up, hold them accountable. And it's time for the Black churches that are in the back pocket of the Democratic Party because they get money during elections. They need to be held accountable. I mean, God will hold them accountable, but in the meantime, the rest of us need to hold them accountable, because part of the problem in the Black community is that the churches have failed the inner city Blacks, and government has substituted, for God and for religion and faith. I think we can turn it around, but it will not be turned around until some white people get some courage to speak up, and some Black people that are on the sidelines, or they're not doing what they were elected to do, they need to own it. We have to own it. We can't talk about slavery. We can't talk about no dads. We have to rein it in.
You hold every community accountable. Everybody must go follow Dr. Carol Swain. That's just an absolute bombshell of an answer. We are so thankful for you being patient today with this news conference. Also, the new book, Diversity Without Discrimination, How to Promote a Culture of Unity in Post-DEI Affirmative Action World, available now. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, something you have to see from the White House. You already saw Stephen Miller rip apart CNN, but he was back at it again this morning. Let's go.
Number one, DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said, because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So he appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily.
The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not. No, Bill, it's
clarification, that's the
important.
case.
He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's an
believe he
illegal
is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order. Furthermore,
answered
the
my
gang,
question.
the
Just give me a
gang,
chance.
the gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from El Salvador. Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador?
You haven't even
to
allowed
what
me
country?
to ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please. Tell me.
So Marco Rubio on Sunday morning said this. On Saturday night, another 10.
What a cop-out. We do interviews all day, and we don't claim ourselves to be, claim to be the best interviewers or anything like that, but we do our best to, keep the conversation going and have interesting things to say, and also to respond when having a raconteur. Stephen Miller just asked the perfect question. What country should he be deported to? He's not from America. I wish he'd done that with CNN. Just flip the question back around on them. Asking the question is actually all of the power. That is the Trump administration at its best. We saw that strength at the UFC this past weekend. What is the Democrat Party going to run against? Donald Trump? Trump just said, I can't wait for next election in the White House. So, I don't know. What's Trump telling us he's going to run against? Is he going to run against a basketball commentator, Stephen A. Smith, who says he has no choice but to consider a presidential run? We'll get to that in just a second, ladies and gentlemen, because that was a fascinating thing to watch this weekend. Watching this weekend was me sitting there in pain, not because of anything you should feel bad for me for. We had a very tight turnaround coming back from the UFC. We have house guests right now in our home. It was a rowdy weekend. I have now, instead of 4 kids, I have 8 kids living in my house because of family that's in town. And so, yeah, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I need a little bit of rest and relaxation, and I found it last night with Bond Charge. Bond Charge is my infrared sauna blanket. It helps me unstress, unwind at the end of even weekend days that are very, very stressful, and when we've been on a very tight clip. This is how I get the sauna effect without an actual sauna. Sauna is very good for you. It's help you live longer. But I don't have room for a traditional sauna in my home, nor would I want it with the kids, right? It's a bit of a security concern for me. But I get the same benefits at lower the heat and with an infrared heat with my Bond Charge sauna blanket. The Bond Charge infrared sauna blanket helps release endorphins, helps you feel euphoric after your session. It's easy to set up, heats up rapidly, highest temperatures compared to other brands. And after using the infrared sauna blanket Bond Charge sent me, I feel relaxed and revitalized. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are living in a stressful time, which of course we all are right now, the way things are going, you want to be able to lock in and be the best version of yourself, use Bond Charge. They ship worldwide. All products are HSA and FSA eligible. Pre-tax savings of up to 40%, plus free shipping on every single sauna blanket and 12-month warranty. Go to bondcharge.com/Benny. That's Bondcharge, BONCHARGE.com/Benny. Use the coupon code Benny for 15% off. Use the coupon code Benny to save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. They're just designed to help you lock in and feel good when you have an entire nursery running out of your house, as we are right now. We have 8 kids in the home, 8 kids under the age of 7. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of a child that throws tantrums, you know Stephen A. Smith as an ESPN commentator. He's somebody that throws tantrums all the time, yelling about this or that. But he decided to go political all of a sudden, decided to fancy himself as a centrist. Nobody cares. Stephen A. Smith's never built anything. He's never been part of any political party. He's never created anything. He's just been an employee of ESPN. He's been handed his paycheck, and he's been handed his studio, and he's just been handed a microphone. And he sits there and does his thing. Some people like him, some people don't. He's very animated, but that's it. That's what you live in the box. That's the box you live in. All right? That's what you do. You're not a billionaire. You're not successful. You haven't created jobs. You're just like a plaything for TV. But Stephen A. Smith has decided that's not what he's going to do. He's probably going to run for president as a Democrat. Stephen A. Smith has no choice but to consider a presidential run. He's disgusted by both parties, you see. ESPN hot take artist Stephen A. Smith says he must consider a presidential run because he's disgusted. I have no choice because I've had it with elected officials. I'm not going to give you their names. Coming up to me, says Stephen A. Smith, on ABC News. He's getting booked on all of these big-time shows. I've had folks who are pundits come up to me. I've had folks who've got a lot of money, billionaires and others, who've talked to me about an exploratory committee and things of that nature. I'm not a politician. I have not desired to be a politician. And then he goes on a political show to talk about being a politician. Here's what it sounded like.
I saw you mentioned Bill Maher. I saw Steve Bannon was on with Bill Maher, and he was asked what Democrats he worries about. And you know the only name he mentioned as a Democrat he'd be worried about. So are you really thinking about running for president? Is this something you think?
Listen, I have no choice because I've had elected officials, and I'm not going to give their names, elected officials coming up to me. I've had folks who are pundits come up to me. I've had folks that got a lot of money, billionaires and others, that have talked to me about exploratory committees and things of that nature. I'm not a politician. I've never had a desire to be a politician. I just signed a contract extension with ESPN. I am very, very
pretty
happy
good one, too.
With my day job. I'm very happy with my bosses. It's a pretty damn good one. Just right. It's a pretty damn good contract. I couldn't be happier. But here's the reality. People have walked up to me, including my own pastor, for crying out loud, who has said to me, you don't know what God has planned for you. At least show the respect to the people who believe in you, who respect you, who believe that you can make a difference in this country, to leave the door open for any possibilities 2 to 3 years down the line. And that's what I've decided to do. But again, whether it's Governor Westmore, who I know, or Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who I know, Andrew Cuomo, who I had the pleasure of interviewing, who's trying to get back in things, be the next mayor of New York, etc. I see a lot of people that obviously and clearly are more qualified than me.
That's a lot of words to effectively say, yeah, you're going to launch an exploratory committee. You wouldn't be the first person from the sports world, obviously, to blend into politics. There are people who are NFL veterans who run for Congress and win all the time. We recently had Kane from the WWE on the program talking about how he'd kicked Tim Walz's ass. So it's not like I'm against it on its face. It's just he's talking about running for president, the most complicated and toughest job on planet Earth, where you are effectively the CEO of the world's largest corporation, America, with the most employees, with complexities that are beyond even the brightest brains on Earth. And there is no doubt that Elon Musk is one of the most high IQ, successful people on the planet, and even he is flabbergasted at how corrupt our government is. So Stephen A. Smith is the right answer. Elon Musk is not the right answer. Stephen A. Smith is the right answer. Yeah, give me a break. The bigger picture here is that Elizabeth Warren was just on with you, Stephen A. Smith says. Okay, so he's talking about Elizabeth Warren. He's talking about Democrats. Will he insult Democrats? Let's go. You're going to have a multitude of Democrat representatives. They talk. What do they ever do? They position themselves for absolutely nothing. I don't hear anything about tariffs from Democrats before the election. Trump had been preaching about them for the longest time. And he specifically singled out Democrats for being addicted to woke culture instead of the needs of the American people. It's an indictment against the Democrat Party that doesn't have any leadership and doesn't have a vision, and it's sad, he said. Interesting. So he said he's going to launch an exploratory committee in 2027. That's what he said on the record. Good luck. Although, he's going hard at the Democrat Party. Would he run as a Democrat? I don't know. Sounds like he's like trying to run as an independent here. Yeah, we'll see. Tariffs are working. NVIDIA will be bringing manufacturing AI to America. This is a massive victory for our country. Just like, let's end on a high note here with the some interesting back and forths today. The news cycle. You hate to see it. You hate to see like the governor's mansion get burned down. You don't like to see it. I don't want to see it. It's clearly like some loner, some mentally ill loner, calls himself a socialist, went and tried to burn down and kill the governor of Pennsylvania. You don't like to see it. You don't like to see it. Okay? You want to see positive things happening for your country. You want to see people heal. Part of the way to do that is to bring back jobs. Men must have a job. Men must have purpose in life. Jobs, marriage, family. These are the things that ground you, show you that your life is worth more, and that people count on you. That's a good motivation for a man. You have to know that your life is not just about serving you and immediate gratification. That's how you build strong men, and strong men make strong nations. So I'm all for this. It's awesome, and this is the result of Trump's tariffs. The media won't ever tell you this, so we will. NVIDIA, the largest chip manufacturer in the world, the most successful one, is working with his manufacturing partners to design and build factories. For the first time, it will produce an NVIDIA AI supercomputer entirely in the United States of America. This is so awesome. Together with leading manufacturing partners, the company has commissioned more than 1 million square feet of manufacturing space to build the NVIDIA Blackwell chip in Arizona, AI supercomputers in Texas. So they're choosing red states to do that. Arizona is a red state. They've stolen it for the last couple elections. Arizona is a red state, and massive breaking news, Arizona has had to purge 50,000 illegal aliens from its voter rolls. We went back and checked, and the margin of victory for the Democrat opponents against Kari Lake was within that margin. So they stole it. They stole they stole the governor's mansion in Arizona. NVIDIA Blackwell chips have started production at the plants in Phoenix and Arizona. NVIDIA is building their own manufacturing plants in Texas with Foxconn in Houston and with Walstron in Dallas. Mass production for both plants is expected to ramp up in the next 12 to 15 months. That's a massive, massive win for the president. Apparently, according to news, there are 10 new trade deals on the table for the United States of America. A positive move in the right direction, and also the tariff tards and the panic publicans they're such idiots. We sat like a couple rows from Dave Portnoy. Man, I really don't like that guy. I guess Alex is gonna hit me hard here because he loves Dave Portnoy, but dude, all it took was the stock market to drop a point for him to go whining to CNN, bitching about how Trump's cost him money. This is what we talk about all the time. You have to be a functional man in society. You have to have purpose. Otherwise, you are going to live a vacuous and meaningless life, and you're going to be a little crybaby. Can't do that. It's good to have vision and to see the future. It's good to see it's good to have something in this country other than the GDP or your tax rate or the digital ones and zeros in your bank account to give you purpose in life. Family, marriage, community, preservation of your culture and where you live. These are all valuable things as well. Okay, I'm saying they're all valuable, and when they're in harmony, that makes for a good man. And we need more good men to save America. We lock in with our Bible verse of the day in order to do that. Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. This is just a spectacular verse for today. Be strong and courageous is the command of God. Don't be afraid is the command of God. God will be with you, so march forward and know that you have the same power living within you that raised Christ from the dead. So, if God is for us, who can be against us? Ladies and gentlemen. We're for you. We want you to succeed. We want this country to succeed. We want American manufacturing to succeed. All of that has to do with all of that aligns with the Tesla giveaway that we're doing right now. This is not a sponsored ad from Tesla. This is not something Elon Musk asked us to do. This is something that we are doing because we want to help. We want to encourage American manufacturing, and we love you. All you have to do is just subscribe to our channel, and boom, there it is. There's your entry into the free Tesla giveaway. But make sure that you pop on over to BennyJohnson.com and click on the link in the banner. You got to give us your name and email to be entered, because we have to be able to contact you. Just subscribing alone, the social media doesn't allow us to contact you. So gotta hop in, give us your name, email, and we're gonna hand deliver the free Tesla. That's gonna be awesome, ladies and gentlemen. This is gonna be an awesome week. I already feel it in my bones. It is Holy Week, and I hope that you are blessed. You've blessed us. Thank you for making us the fastest growing news streamer in the whole wide internet. We love you. And shout out to the chat. We'll do super chats tomorrow. All right? Okay. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
Yes, you are.
It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.